I want to share my story with you. It is a story of faith, questions, confusion, and finally, peace. My name was Elena Grace Miller. I was born and raised in the United States in a deeply religious Christian family. Faith was not just something we believed in, it was how we lived. Almost every family around us went to church every Sunday. My family did too. My parents were very active in church life. Priests often came to our home. My mother taught Sunday school, and I helped her with the children. From a very young age, people saw me as a religious girl. I wanted to be known as a good girl, a girl who truly loved God. I think I was more religious than most children, even though I don't really remember feeling that way at the time. On one of my birthdays, my aunt gave me a Bible. My sister received a doll. I was happy with the Bible. Another time, I asked my parents for a prayer book. I loved it so much that I read it every single day for many years. When I reached middle school, I joined a Bible study program. I stayed in it for 2 years. Before that, I had read parts of the Bible, but I didn't really understand them. I thought this would finally be my chance to learn and understand my faith better. But instead, many passages confused me deeply. Some even felt strange and unsettling to my heart. One idea that troubled me a lot was original sin. It said that all humans are born sinful. But I had a baby brother. I looked at him and thought, how could a newborn baby be sinful? I also read stories about Prophet Abraham and Prophet David. Some of these stories disturbed me. I couldn't understand why prophets, chosen by God, would act in the ways described. It didn't feel right inside me. There were many other things that confused me, but I stayed quiet. I was afraid to ask questions. I didn't want anyone to think I was doubting or being disrespectful. I wanted to be known as a good, obedient girl. But there was a boy in our class who kept asking questions. He asked again and again. I listened quietly, but deep inside, I had the same questions. The hardest thing for me to understand was the idea of the Trinity. I tried to understand it, but I couldn't. How could God be three and one part be human? No matter how much I thought about it, my heart could not accept it. At school, I had studied Greek and Roman mythology. Those myths talked about many gods, each responsible for a different part of life. To me, the Trinity and the idea of powerful saints felt very similar to those ancient beliefs. That comparison made me even more uncomfortable. The boy continued asking questions about the Trinity. He received many answers, but none satisfied him. And honestly, they didn't satisfy me either. Finally, our teacher, a theology professor, told him to pray for faith. So I prayed too. I asked God to help me believe and understand. In high school, I secretly dreamed of becoming a nun. I was drawn to a life fully devoted to God, praying at set times, living simply, dressing in a way that showed faith. But there was a problem. I wasn't Catholic. I lived in a town where Catholics were a small and often disliked minority. My Protestant upbringing also taught me to dislike statues and images. I found it hard to believe that dead saints could help me or hear my prayers. In college, I continued thinking and praying. Students often debated religion. I heard many ideas. Like Yusuf Islam, I explored Eastern religions, Buddhism, Confucianism, Hinduism, but none of them answered the questions in my heart. Then I met a Muslim man from Libya. He spoke to me about Islam and the Quran. He said Islam was the final and complete revealed religion. At first, I struggled to accept that idea. I thought of Africa and the Middle East as less developed places. I couldn't understand how something modern could come from there. My family once took this man to a Christmas church service. The service was beautiful and emotional, but afterward he asked a simple question. Who decided this way of worship? And who taught you how to pray? At first, his question upset me, but later it stayed in my mind. It made me think deeply. Had the people who designed our worship really been guided by God? How did they know the correct way to pray? I went back to church and watched the priests carefully. They were no better than the people sitting in the church. Some were even worse. I started asking myself, why do I need another human to reach God? Why can't I speak to God directly and ask for His forgiveness myself? Not long after that, I found a translation of the Quran in a bookstore. I bought it and started reading. Slowly, on and off, for almost 8 years. During that time, I became more aware of my sins. I felt afraid. How would I know if God had forgiven me? The Christian way of forgiveness no longer gave me peace. My sins felt heavy. I didn't know how to escape that burden. All I wanted was forgiveness. One day, while reading the Quran, I came across a verse that touched my heart deeply. It spoke about sincere Christians whose eyes fill with tears when they recognize the truth. For the first time, I felt hope. I began to believe that Islam might hold the answers I was searching for. I watched Muslims praying on television. Their prayer felt direct, humble, and pure. I found a book that explained how Muslims pray. I tried to pray that way myself. I didn't even know about wuzu, so my prayer wasn't correct. Still, I prayed like that, alone, in secret, for years. About 8 years after I first bought the Quran, I read a verse that changed everything. It said that the religion had been perfected. I cried with joy. Deep in my heart, I knew this message was meant for me. One day, in November 1986, while standing in my kitchen, something became very clear inside me. I knew I was Muslim. I was still scared, so I wrote a letter to the mosque. I wrote that I believed in Allah, the one true God, and that Muhammad was his messenger. The next day, a brother from the mosque called me. I said my shahada on the phone. At that moment, I was told that all my sins were forgiven, that I was as pure as a newborn baby. Elena Grace Miller was no more. I became Amina Noor. I cried all night, repeating Allah's name. My burden was gone. My heart was finally at peace. Alhamdulillah.